3 spine-chilling stories unveiling terrifying secrets. On a haunted rainy night, alone, rain hammered against the windows like 1,000 frantic fists. Thunder rolled overhead, each rumble threatening to tear the house apart. Lily, a weary single mother, sank into her cozy living room, the warmth of the decor clashing with the ominous storm outside. After a grueling night shift at the hospital where life teetered on the edge, the steam rising from her cup of tea was the only comfort she could find. In that flickering light, shadows danced and flickered, and her 11-year-old son, Evan, looked up at her with wide, glistening eyes. "Mom, tell me a story, I want a scary one." His voice pierced the tension in the air. The wind howled like a warning, but excitement sparked in Evan's gaze. Lily hesitated but eventually nodded, giving in to the innocent curiosity that loved to fill the dark corners of her living room. Maybe distraction was the best way to chase the shadows lurking just beyond the walls. "All right, let me tell you about the firefighter," she began. A story that sounded innocent at first, a friendly face in a small town. Everyone knew him. He was an always smiling volunteer who rushed to help families in need. Yet, as she unraveled the tale, it creeped into their reality. He wasn't a savior, but a predator hiding in plain sight, preying on desperate families, exploiting their trust to lure them into despair. Adrenaline raced through Lily's veins. What if her neighbors were like him, appearing kind but hiding sinister intentions? Evan's excitement morphed into unease, his face reflecting confusion and fear. As the storm intensified, she pressed onward. Then there was a couple who lost their way on a deserted road. She painted the eerie scene of the couple's discovery of an abandoned school, its eerie silence echoing relics of laughter now long gone. Each creaky door and flickering bulb unveiled dark past secrets. Disappearances spun like a thread through their suburban fabric. With every word she spoke, shadows loomed larger, silence became suffocating, and Lily couldn't shake the dread that gripped her heart. What horrors lay in the familiar streets of their quiet suburb? The thrum of the storm grew louder, blurring the line between safety and nightmare. Before she dove into her final tale, she felt that familiar urge to break the tension. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue with her heart pounding. Lily shared the final tale of ancestral sins and ghostly retributions. Spirits unleashed on innocent children for the wrongs of their forebears, an impending doom that suggested her bloodline might harbor stains of guilt. The atmosphere thickened, suffocating her with its weight, and each sentence held them suspended between horror and helplessness. Just as she finished, a soft knock echoed like a whisper from the void. A chill gripped her spine, heart racing. She glanced at the door, the world outside twisted by rain as if holding its breath. Evan's wide eyes searched hers, a shared fear hanging between them like a fragile strand. The stories had blurred line between imagination and reality. Who or what awaited them on the other side? Was the night alive with vengeful spirits or simply a storm playing tricks on their minds? The foreboding silence pressed down as she took a step toward the door, every instinct screaming against the darkness lurking behind. Lily's heart thudded in her chest as she approached the door, the rain enveloping her like a heavy shroud. Each drop splattered against the ground, forming puddles that mirrored the chaos raging within. She hesitated, her fingers lingering on the doorknob, when Evan's voice broke through the oppressive silence. "Mom, don't," his whispered plea sent a jolt of fear coursing through her. Yet curiosity gnawed at Lily. What if it was nothing? Just the wind? Or perhaps a lost traveler seeking shelter from the storm? With a deep breath, she turned the knob and pulled the door open, the hinges creaking in hollow protest. The deluge rushed in, swirling around her legs. There was no one there, just shadows. Shadows playing tricks in the dim light of her porch. But then she stepped outside, her bare feet sinking into the sodden welcome mat. The air felt thicker, charged, as if the storm itself were holding its breath, waiting. "Is anybody there?" she called out, her voice barely holding together. She peered into the darkness, squinting as raindrops slid down her face, but received no answer. Faintly, something flickered beyond the reach of the porch light, a sudden movement. Instincts flared in her chest. "Evan, stay back." Her tone was sharp, desperate. Evan clutched the edge of the doorway. His youthful bravado dissolved into dread. "What is it, Mom?" he whispered, eyes darting nervously. Lily turned to face the shadows again, her gut tightening as she took a few tentative steps forward. She squinted into the downpour, searching for whatever had caught her eye. A sense of dread clawed at her, merging with the oppressive weight of the rain. And just as quickly, she found it. A dark figure stood at the end of the driveway, drenched but still. In that heartbeat, all the stories she had shared with Evan rushed back, people who vanished without a trace, and the folklore that suffocated their neighborhood like the storm. The figure remained motionless, only visible due to the scattered streetlights reflecting against the silvery droplets cascading down. "Mom, let's go inside," Evan pleaded, his voice trembling. But it was too late. A hauntingly familiar tune began to drift on the wind, one that echoed from her childhood. A lullaby, sweet yet sinister, weaving through the sound of the rain, tugging at her memories, a melody her beloved grandmother used to sing. Knees weakening, Lily fought the urge to retreat. "Who are you?" she managed to call out, her voice wavering under the weight of fear. The figure tilted its head in a way that felt unnatural, and a raspy voice slid through the downpour, chilling her to the bone. "I've come to bring you home." Her heart raced as the horrible realization crashed over her home. But what did that mean? Was this some twisted call to her ancestral sins, reaching through the darkness? The storm surged, lightning illuminating the shadow for a mere moment, and in that fleeting light, she recognized a face, a ghastly visage, so similar to her own. Eerie yet undeniably familiar. Panic gripped her harder than before. "Evan, get inside," she shouted, adrenaline spilling into her words. She turned to push him through the doorway, but an unseen force pulled her back. The lullaby grew louder, drowning out her thoughts. As she felt the ground tremble beneath her feet, she realized they were not alone anymore. The shadows around her pulsed and writhed as if awakening from a long slumber. "Mom, what's happening?" Evan cried, eyes wide with terror. The night howled, spirits swirling in the storm, and she could only wonder which one was calling to her, beckoning her home. With a deep breath, she clung to the last shreds of her sanity and whispered, "What do you want from us?" The wind shifted, and the darkness folded inward, as everything around them felt poised on the edge of an unholy revelation. They were not safe anymore, and whatever haunted them was only just getting started. The shadows shifted closer, swirling around Lily and Evan like a tempest, their forms twisting into grotesque shapes that seemed to whisper secrets just beyond her grasp. "Mom!" Evan's voice broke through her stupor, pulling her back from the chilling dread threatening to engulf her. She felt his small hand gripping hers, his fingers trembling with fear. "Stay close," Lily commanded, her heart pounding furiously as she scanned the darkness. The familiar lullaby pulsated in the air, battering against her like raindrops, each note striking a deep, primordial chord within her. As if in response to her fear, the figure at the end of the driveway took a tentative step forward, the wet ground sloshing beneath its weight. Lightning flashed again, illuminating a fleeting moment of terror. The figure's eyes, dark and hollow, seemed to bore into her soul, pulling her into a memory she struggled to suppress. "Mom, let us go, please." Evan's urgency cracked through the melodious grip. Lily fought against the urge to flee. What was left behind might be far worse than the horror that was now crawling closer. She focused on the figure, its tune weaving in and out of the biting wind, as she felt the pulse of ancestral fear tightening around her throat. "Who are you?" Lily shouted, desperation fueling her voice. "I am what you fear most." The rasping voice echoed unnaturally, blending with the rain, reverberating through the very marrow of her bones. It was her grandmother's voice. The same voice that had lulled her and whispered family stories late into the night. But now, steeped in darkness, it felt like an accusation. "Evan, we can't stand here." She turned to drag him back inside the house, but the moment she shifted her gaze, there was a sudden change. The shadows that had once lurked passively now surged forward, a relentless wave crashing against her. "No!" she screamed, feeling sharp claws grip her wrist, pulling her back toward the figure. It was stronger than she had anticipated, an overpowering force born of long-held grievances and lurking dread. Evan shrieked, a chorus of terror echoing through the yard. "Mom!" The last remnants of the lullaby rang in her ears as the shadows closed in, blotting out the world behind them. Every instinct screamed for her to run, to escape, but somehow, she was rooted to the spot. The pull was too strong, cold, and suffocating. "Let him go," she pleaded, her voice breaking as she fought against the grip of the dark embrace. She could feel her resolve disintegrating, each struggling breath revealing the fragile boundary between life and something much darker. Then, in the moment of direst fear, a thought cut through the haze, her grandmother's warning, spoken long ago amidst stories of torment and salvation. To break the curse, the truth must be spoken. "Evan, listen," she shouted, her voice booming against the onslaught. "You have to remember, you know the stories. The truth can stop them." "What truth?" he screamed, his own eyes wide with confusion and panic. It's about us. About what we've lost." She felt the shadows writhing, pushing in closer. "We have to face it." But before she could formulate another word, the figure lunged forward, stepping into the flickering light. The familiar features were marred, twisted beyond recognition, yet unmistakably her own. A chill rippled down her spine as realization dawned. "It's you," she whispered breathlessly. "You brought this." The distorted face contorted into a grotesque smile, one that mimicked her own yet carried the weight of their family's past. The shadows erupted around them in a cacophony of whispers, and the air thickened with the scent of rain mingling with something else, something old, something rotten. "What do you want from us?" she gasped, as the darkness tightened its hold. "Your past will be your inheritance," the figure rasped, and then faded into the storm, leaving behind a chilling silence. In that ominous quiet, Lily turned to Evan, eyes wide with wild confusion. "We can't just stand here. We have to find the truth, or we'll lose everything." But as the rain kept pouring, she knew, deep down, that unveiling the truth would draw out far more than just their past. What lurked in the depths of their family history was a terror so profound that the very notion of it made her blood run cold. The storm raged on. The shadows waited patiently. And with every heartbeat, so did something far worse. The ground beneath them began to tremble, a low rumble that vibrated through Lily's bones, mirroring the fear that coursed through her veins. She could feel the weight of the ancient presence clinging to the air, thick with a rancid odor that cut through the innocent smell of rain. "Mom, what do we do?" Evan's voice cracked, the innocence of his question piercing through the tension like a blade. His grip on her hand tightened, knuckles paling as he stared into the engulfing darkness. "We face this together," she replied, though doubt gnawed at her mind. The realization that this would not end with simple revelations was suffocating. "Together," he echoed, though the quiver in his voice betrayed the courage he tried to muster. In the distance, the lullaby swelled again, growing louder, more insistent. It sang of forgotten things, of laughter turned to screams, of joy overshadowed by shadows. The appearance of the figure had peeled back layers of their reality, a window to a past she desperately wanted to close. "Stay with me," she whispered, an uneasy calm washing over her. They took a step backward, intent on returning to the safety of the house, but the shadows surged forward, hungry and demanding. They twisted around Lily and Evan, their grip icy against their skin, whispering the echoes of 1,000 warnings. "Remember," they hissed, their voices a chilling choral blend of her grandmother, lost ancestors, and a darkness that yearned for recognition. Lily's heart raced. "What do you want from us?" she shouted into the void, her voice drowning momentarily in the storm's fury. "Unravel the truth," a chorus of voices answered, filling the air like dandelion seeds caught in a gust. "Let go of what you think you know and embrace what you fear." A flash of lightning illuminated the ephemeral glimmers of shadows weaving dangerous patterns, tightening like a noose around her family's legacy, each loop holding secrets they had buried deep. The shadows tensed and split, forming a passage. Lily caught a glimpse of her grandmother's old house, the dilapidated structure nestled into the hillside, memories embedded in every creaking floorboard. It was momentary, the image flickering like the blinding light. "Is that where it all began?" she muttered, stepping forward despite the terror. "Yes," the shadows echoed, a dreadful affirmation that prickled the back of her neck. Mom, Evan's voice shook. "I don't want to go back there." Lily hesitated, the weight of her son's fear anchoring her in place. But in the depths of her heart, she knew they had no choice. Avoiding their past had brought this malevolence to their doorstep. "It's the only way," she said, determination sharpening her resolve. As they moved toward the passage, the air grew heavier, thick with a presence that bordered on suffocation. The icy tendrils of fear clawed at her mind, whispering dread-filled predictions of the horrors held within the walls of that ancestral home. Once inside, the familiar scent of aged wood and decay clung to the air, a rancid sweetness that made her stomach churn. Shadows danced across the walls, following them like forlorn spirits, beckoning them deeper into the heart of their lineage. This room," Evan stuttered, halting in front of a door marked with symbols Lily had never seen before. "Mom, I feel something bad here." "Me too," she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. The door seemed to pulsate, as if it were alive, thumping with the heartbeat of their family secrets, resonating with everything unsaid and every tragedy left unresolved. Lily placed her hand on the cold door, her heart hammering in her chest. "Whatever is behind this door, we'll face it together. Promise me." "I promise," Evan replied, though the fear that cloaked him made her throat tighten. With a deep breath, she pushed the door open and a rush of musty air enveloped them like a shroud. The room was filled with old photographs, eyes staring back with haunting accusations. A strange, flickering light pulsed from an altar in the center, illuminating an object shrouded in shadows. As they stepped forward, the shadows darkened, swirling in a frenzy, and an ear-splitting scream erupted from the depths of the darkness. Get out now," it bellowed, sending a jolt of terror through Lily. The very walls throbbed with rage as if the house itself were alive, trying to consume them. But she was anchored by Evan's presence, his courage clashing against the cacophony of despair. "What's happening?" Evan cried, clutching her leg, but the frantic energy of the room started pulling them apart. "Stay close," she shouted again, grounding both of their fears. But the shadows were relentless, and as they leaned into the flickering light, Lily could feel the walls closing in, reality bending under the pressure of their hidden truths. They were about to uncover secrets meant to stay buried, and deep down, she feared what they might unleash. The shadows surged forward one last time, and in an instant, their world flickered dark. What awaited them on the other side could tear their souls apart. "Evan," but his voice was swallowed by the echoes, leaving only the desolate pulse of the darkness. Unknown horrors awaited. Would they brave whatever haunted the depths of their lineage, or would the shadows consume them whole? The darkness morphed around them, thickening, twisting into shapes that danced beyond comprehension. Lily's breath quickened as she fought against the panic rising within. "Evan," she yelled, but her voice fell flat in the unfathomable void. The room had turned into a whirlpool of shadows, and every inch felt like a tightening grip around her throat. She reached for her son, but the space between them stretched impossibly. I'm here," he called out, his voice bursting from somewhere in the chaos, wrapped in fear and desperation. It was a lonely beacon in a storm of terror. She strained to move toward him, legs heavy and slow, as if wading through thick sludge. "I see you," she shouted, forcing the words through trembling lips. A scream echoed again, a sound twisting into a cacophony that clawed at the very fabric of her sanity. The photographs on the walls morphed. Distorting faces, she recognized her ancestors now contorted in eternal suffering. The shadows were not just echoes of the past. They were alive with torment. "Mom, please." Evan's voice broke through, raw and frantic. Lily lunged toward the source, her fingertips grazing rough wood, grounding her. "Hold on." But the air crackled with danger, a palpable energy that flared with each heartbeat. The altar in the center of the room pulsed in time with her own, a disgusting rhythm of life and death. A dark silhouette loomed over it, a figure distorted by the flickering light, a wraith-like semblance of her grandmother. Lily, the voice echoed, both familiar and alien, weaving through the shadows like a serpent. "You must choose." "Choose what?" she shouted, frustration and fear welling up as shadows whispered promises of escape and delirium entwined. "I don't understand." "Embrace the lineage, the darkness that runs through your blood, or be consumed," it hissed, merging with the swaying darkness. "Mom!" Evan cried again, the sound of sheer agony rippling into her gut like ice. The room began to spin, and the walls shimmered with light and dark, threatening to tear apart the edges of her mind. "You're wrong. We won't give in," she screamed, her voice rising above the wails that filled the chamber, a defiance igniting somewhere deep within her. The shadows danced with fury at her declaration, crashing against her like waves, howling with a feral rage. "You cannot escape what you are," they declared, and with each proclamation, memories surged, flooding her mind with visions of horrors long buried beneath layers of denial. Distant laughter filled the room, echoes of a childhood innocence lost, faces of family who vanished, stories swept under the rug, and the bloodline, cursed to repeat the same mistakes. Suddenly, light exploded within the chaos, illuminating a rusty dagger on the altar, an artifact of unimaginable power, linked to the ancestral sins. "Take it," the voice urged, trembling with hunger and desperation. "Embrace your destiny." "Mom!" Evan's plea hit her like a hammer. "No, stay back," she screamed, feeling the pulse of her family's dark legacy throbbing in her veins. The dagger shimmered with an unsettling allure. Sweat dripped from her brow, heart pounding as the shadows screamed in unison, "Choose now, or face obliteration." With a deep, shuddering breath, Lily reached for the dagger, the cold metal sending shockwaves through her system. As her fingers wrapped around the hilt, a violent shock coursed through her, illuminating memories of betrayal and pain that were not her own. "Stop! Don't!" Evan cried, his voice slicing through the tumult. But it was too late. The moment the dagger touched her skin, memories flooded her mind more than her own. The weight of ancestral guilt and secrets clawed at her insides, screaming for acknowledgement, suffocating her reason. The room erupted with howls of agony, shaking her core. Shadows morphed into faces, eyes filled with regret, anger, and a chilling thirst for vengeance. "Lily!" Evan's voice echoed once more, but it felt so distant. She was at the brink, standing on a threshold where the past collided violently with the present. Would her decision free them, or unleash the horror that lay dormant within? As echoes of their cries faded, the shadows surged, ready to answer the question lingering in the air. Their very survival hung in the balance. The dagger pulsed in Lily's grasp, a living entity buzzing with ancient energy as if thirsting for blood. A whirlwind of emotions erupted within her. Guilt, pain, and a dark sensation of power. The shadows hissed in delight, eager to feed off her turmoil. "Let go," echoed a voice, muffled but insistent, cutting through the chaos like a knife. It was Evan, closer now, but the panic in his tone twisted her heart. "No, I must do this," she screamed, gripping the dagger tighter, each heartbeat synchronizing with the pulsing shadows. "We can't let them win." But with every word, the darkness tightened its grip around her, anxiety coiling tighter around her chest like a suffocating serpent. Each face that swirled in the smoke held a story of sorrow and rage, faces that belonged to her lineage. They twisted and writhed, their mouths opening in silent screams of despair. "Mom, please, you don't have to do this." Evan's voice was raw, edged with desperation as he clawed at the air. Each cry was a reminder of the child she had sworn to protect. Lily's thoughts splintered. Power surged through her, intoxicating, promising revenge against the injustices woven deep within her blood. What if this is the only way? She mused, battling with herself, the voices of her ancestors whispering sweet venom, urging her to embrace the legacy. The shadows swirled with renewed fury, twisting around her legs like dark vines, ensnaring her. "You are one of us," they taunted. "Accept it or suffer the fate of the weak." A vision flashed through her mind, a glimpse of what could be, the power she could wield. With it, she could protect Evan. Yet, how many would have to pay for that power? "Mom, focus," Evan cried, desperation injected into his voice. "You're not like them. Fight it." But the weight of the dagger grew heavier, filled with the heaviness of guilt, secrets, and a legacy of pain. "This isn't just about me," she shouted, dangerously close to losing herself in the frenzy. The shadows laughed, cruel, mocking. "Then embrace your role, the next vessel of our vengeance." Lily fought against their sweet words, clawing back her sanity. She could feel Evan's presence behind her, a lifeline tossing against the tide. "No, you matter," she gasped, redirecting her focus back to her son. With a sudden burst of will, she swung the dagger toward the swirl of darkness, carving through despair. As cold steel cut through the air, the shadows shrieked, recoiling, the faces shifting into expressions of horror. But the dagger didn't stab the darkness. It struck against an invisible barrier, as if the air itself fought back, refusing her control. "No." The sheer terror in her voice hung like a noose in the air, rending her resolve. "You can't keep me." Evan's figure flickered behind the shadows, his eyes wide with pleading. "I'm right here. Don't let them take you." The shadows hissed louder, screeching in agony as they surrounded her, encasing her in a darkness almost palpable. With every heartbeat, the air thickened, spinning her thoughts into chaos. Struggling, Lily closed her eyes, gripped the hilt of the dagger, and whispered words she didn't fully understand but felt deep in her bones, a prayer, a chant, a command to the spirits swirling around them. "Release me." The impact was immediate. A blinding flash punctured the darkness like a ruptured vein. Then silence fell in that stillness. The shadows receded just enough, allowing her to breathe. But an unsettling calm filled the space, thick with anticipation. "Are you okay?" Evan's voice broke through the fog, but it was tinged with an unsettling edge. Suddenly, the walls shivered and trembled, reforming around them, shapes shifting with malicious intent. "You think you can escape? You are ours," with chilling clarity. Lily realized the darkness hadn't vanished. It was simply waiting, ready to retaliate. Fear gripped her heart, and as shadows reformed, flickering like flames around them, she knew they were far from free. Her next move would determine theirs. A choice loomed ahead, a fight or submission. But the dagger pulsed again, insistent, demanding her next action. What lay ahead would plunge them deeper into the abyss or perhaps promise a flicker of redemption. But could they survive the horrors that awaited? Lily's breath came in sharp gasps, each inhale heavy with the acrid scent of burnt shadows. The silence would have been comforting, but it felt more like a predator watching, waiting for the right moment to strike. She dared not blink, afraid that the darkness would take that tiny flicker of light as an invitation. "Mom!" Evan's voice trembled, a fragile string pulling her back to reality. "The walls, they're moving." She turned her gaze toward the shifting forms, a blur of dark shapes writhing and colliding, as if alive. Her heart raced, pounding against her ribcage like a trapped animal. Numbers loomed in the shadows, flickering like fireflies in the distance, but they brought no comfort, only dread. "It's going to crush us," Evan cried, his voice shaking her to her core. With every second, the ominous walls grew closer, squeezing the air from her lungs. "No, we won't be taken," Lily shouted defiantly, lifting the dagger. Its cold steel bit into her palm, pumping energy back into her veins. She could feel ancient power humming within as her ancestors urged her to strike. "Mom, listen." Evan's eyes were wild, filled with a haunting mixture of fear and resolve. "You're stronger than this. You're not just a vessel. You can fight. Fight?" The shadows had always whispered the opposite. They had shown her the path of vengeance, promising power always just out of reach. But Evan's face ignited a glimmer of courage deep inside her, dangerous, reckless courage. A part of her believed him, believed that there was still a way to break free, to find herself and protect her son. "Stand back," she demanded, a surge of defiance welling up within her. She stepped forward, the dagger raised high, its blade glistening ominously. The shadows hissed, recoiling from her ferocity, but they quickly regrouped, circling her like vultures ready to pick apart the remnants of her spirit. As she lunged, the dagger sliced through the air, aiming straight for the heart of the malignancy that closed in around them. It collided once more with that invisible barrier. Shockwaves reverberated through her arm. Pain shot through her like electricity, but she couldn't relent now. She pressed on. With a breath of desperation, she chanted the words from the depths of her memory, a rhythm that felt ancient yet familiar. "By blood and bond, by family's plea, let the shadows flee from me." A pulse erupted from the dagger, echoing her declaration. The shadows shrieked, scrambling back as if struck by light, yet an oppressive weight slammed against her chest. She couldn't tell if it was fear or something worse. "Mom, it's working." Evan's voice rang out, his eyes gleaming with hope. But beneath that glimmer, she saw the shadows weaving around him, dark tendrils creeping up his legs, trying to pull him down into the depths. "Evan, no." Her voice broke into a raw scream, her heart splintering as the oppressive darkness threatened to swallow him entirely. He stumbled back, fear constricting his throat, choking back desperation. I can't hold them off." With a fierce determination that came from every motherly instinct, Lily surged forward, pulling the dagger from the barrier's grip, and turning her fear into rage. The shadows hissed, a chilling crescendo that filled the air, while she dug deep within, tapping into a power she never knew she possessed. "Enough!" she roared, as if her voice could shatter the very chains binding them to this realm of despair. The dagger pulsed brighter, a beacon against the dark, illuminating the twisted faces of her ancestors that danced in anguish. But the darkness was relentless. It coiled tighter, battling her efforts, and suddenly, all the anger and power she felt sputtered, fizzling like a flame in the wind. She stumbled back, her heart a fragile, racing thing, her fingers tingling with pain. "Mom, please." Evan's voice cut through, desperate now. "We have to do something." He was right. They had to do something before the shadows reclaimed them both. Lily grabbed her son's hand, the warmth of his skin grounding her. "Together," she whispered fiercely. But the walls trembled ominously, reshaping around them. Would it be the last time they ever stood together? What if she couldn't protect him? What if she was destined to join the spirits of the damned? As the shadows slithered forward once more, she realized that the power she sought might come at a cost neither of them could afford to pay. And still she had to choose. Fight or fall. Was revenge truly worth losing everything? Darkness descended and they braced for impact, the chilling realization that the worst was yet to come. Lily stood frozen, the dark mass swirling around her and Evan tightening its grip. The shadows stretched, long and twisted, reaching for them as if sensing their desperate fight. A sense of futility washed over her. No matter how fierce she felt, it was impossible to ignore the creeping dread coiling around her heart. Then a voice broke through, a raspy whisper carried on the cold air. "You cannot fight what is destined." The words echoed, chilling her further. Who spoke? The shadows seemed to pulse in harmony with the voice, a dark symphony that rang of old secrets. Lily tightened her grip on the dagger, its coldness sharper against her skin, offering a fragile anchor amidst this chaotic storm. She glanced at Evan, his face pale but resolute. The strength in his gaze steadied her, that flicker of hope forcing her to latch onto her power. "We can't let it take us," she hissed, summoning remnants of courage. We can break free. Fight it, Mom, Evan urged, his voice trembling but determined. Remember what we've learned. The stories, the rituals, the stories' memories surged forth, jumbled but distinct. All those long nights spent in her grandmother's lap, tales of battles fought and won against dark forces. Lily remembered the words, the protective spells, how they thwarted what others couldn't imagine facing. This wasn't some mere nightmare. It was a legacy she could reclaim. The shadows shifted, feasting on her hesitation. She felt their hunger, that yearning to drown her in despair. They edged closer, latching onto her with icy fingers that threatened to seep into her bones. But more than fear, something akin to anger welled up. By blood and bond, I call upon the strength of my family, she shouted, letting the ancient words spill from her lips. I will not fall to you. With that, she plunged the dagger downward, the blade slashing through the thickening darkness. A crack split the air, a seismic tremor that sent ripples through the malevolent force surrounding them. The cacophony of screams erupted, rising higher, shriller. Evan's grip tightened around her, as if their hands melded as one. Keep going. It's working. His voice surged with life, bolstering her resolve. The shadows recoiled, twisting violently as lines of light cut through the dark. For an instant, a path opened before them, a fleeting escape glimmering like a mirage. But with every inch they gained, the darkness leered back, more furious than before, more vicious. Well done, Lily. The chilling voice slithered through the air again, darkly amused. But you cannot escape what is owed. The price must be paid. Her heart dropped. What did it mean? What price? Mom! Evan yelled. The shadows surged, bold again, retaliating with a force sizzling with anger. The ground beneath them trembled. The very air thickened with a palpable dread. A wave of instinct washed over her. They had to get out now. Evan, run! She screamed, pulling him along. But the shadows sharpened, forming myriad figures of anguish and despair, blocking their path. It was as if the world became a theater of horrors, each figure reflecting the darkness that lingered within her heart. Mom, look out! Evan's voice sliced through her panic as one shadow lunged for her. She ducked just in time, feeling the cold brush of its fingers graze her shoulder. A bolt of fear shot through her, paralyzing. In that moment, rage and adrenaline flooded back, raw and alive. You will not take us, she howled, channeling every fragment of connection she felt with her ancestors. The dagger pulsed again, blood linking her to generations of warriors. And then, she let the dagger swing in an arc, a desperate slash that would carve a way to freedom. As the darkness shrieked again, the shadows writhed, flickering like flames disturbed by a strong wind. Each sound was a reminder of their presence, but she could feel it. An oppressive force was weakening. But the moment of triumph shattered, realization crashing down like a wave. The faces of her ancestors, once anguished, were now grim reminders of the price looming ahead. Mom, we have to go, Evan pleaded, his small frame shaking. They surged forward, tears and sweat mingling on her brow, and she felt it, the connection loosen, the weight of expectation nearly overwhelming. Yet, as they raced toward the clearing light, she knew what awaited was perhaps more terrifying than before. The price was coming. Would they survive to face it together, or would darkness find a way to claim them both in the end? They sprinted forward, hearts pounding, the air swirling with chaos. The darkness churned around them, furious at their rebellious spirit, clawing back with a vengeance. The shadows transformed into shivering forms, twisting into faces of past victims, pleading and howling in torment, threatening to pull them back. Mom! Evan's voice rang out, shrill and urgent. Don't stop. Whatever you do, don't look back. But she felt the weight of their gazes, hollow eyes full of despair boring into her soul. For a split second, Lily hesitated, her will wavering beneath the sorrowful entreaties. We can't let fear control us, she muttered under her breath, forcing her legs to keep moving. The darkness surged with that breath, a wild, howling wind that tried to snatch her and Evan away, tendrils latching onto their clothes, pulling them back. Lily gritted her teeth, digging her heels into the ground, but the shadows were relentless. They pulled tighter, wrapping around her ankles like chains. "Remember the stories," Evan yelled, his small voice filled with determination. "The ones about turning the tide." She could feel the dagger pulsing against her palm, as if it recognized the rage inside her and craved release. "By the blood of my ancestors, I claim my power," Lily shouted, and the air rumbled, charged with energy. With a desperate swing, she sliced through the shadows latching onto her. An explosion of light burst forth, illuminating the monstrous forms briefly, causing them to recoil. But the piercing cries of the damned only grew more deafening, echoing around them like a curse. "Keep moving," Evan urged, and they dashed forward anew, every frantic strides amplifying their courage. The path they charged through narrowed, the light flickering, as if it fought against the darkness closing in. Just as they rounded a thick patch of wailing shadows, Lily spotted something, a glimmer of hope, an old, weathered stone arch that stood partially obscured by mist. "Over there." "The arch," she cried, pointing. It seemed to promise safety, a bridge to whatever lay beyond the onslaught of darkness. But as they approached, a loud, guttural roar blasted through the air, augmenting the shadow's frenzy. "You cannot leave. You owe a price." The voice buzzed aggressively, echoing with an ancient malevolence. The shadows churned, sharpening into spikes that shot toward them. "Brace yourself," Lily shouted, shielding Evan with her body. The cold, foul tendrils raked against her, 1,000 knives slicing through hope, but there was fury in her bones. She'd lost too much already. With ferocity, she lifted the dagger again. "You will not take my son. You will not take us." The words exploded from her lips, fierce and unwavering. She slashed again, hacking through the encroaching darkness with all the strength she could muster. The air popped and crackled, sparking against the cold. The shadows retreated, howling in agony as light bloomed from the dagger. But for every inch they gained, the shadows retaliated in kind, crawling and creeping, filling the space with dread once more. "Run. We can't dwell here," Evan urged, pulling at her arm. As they raced into the glowing archway, darkness coiled around them, desperate to pull them back. Just as they crossed the threshold, a final, piercing scream filled their ears, a sound laced with clarity and despair, shaking the very ground beneath them. With a sickening lurch, the shadows started collapsing behind them. The arch radiated warmth, enveloping them as they stumbled through. But something was wrong. A coldness gripped at their heels as they emerged outside, back into the night. Instead of safety, a chilling silence enveloped them, the brightness mocking their momentary victory. They stood in an empty forest, alone but for the distant echoes of shadows still lingering. The familiar surroundings felt alien and wrong, as though they had entered a world where fear thrived, a sickening playground for the darkness they believed they escaped. "Mom, what just happened?" Evan asked, trembling. A heavy dread settled in her chest. "I think we've just begun to unravel a much darker truth. The price, it might still be waiting for us." An unsettling crack echoed in the distance, the trees rustling with unseen movements. Lily's heart plummeted as she realized they were not truly alone. Something malevolent was still hunting. What had they set in motion, and would they be strong enough to face it again? The night was thick with unease, a tacit reminder that the true horror was far from over. Rain dribbled from the leaves overhead, a bloodless echo of their past chaos. But the air was saturated with a tension that felt palpable. "Mom!" Evan's voice broke through the silence, betraying the fear tremoring in him. His small stature cast in shadows even with the light of the moon. Reeling from the aftermath of their dark confrontation, he looked up at her, desperate and searching. "What do we do now?" Lily knelt down, cupping his face in her trembling hands. "We stay strong," she whispered, her own heart racing with memories of darkness. "We face it together." Even now, as uncertainty loomed overhead, A flicker of hope ignited within her, a small ember refusing to be snuffed out. The whispers of their lineage still echoed in her ears, the stories yet to be fully revealed. This feeling, oppressive and chilling, hinted at unfinished business. They had escaped the physical torment, but what did the shadows want from them? The chilling question loomed: what would be required of them? As if in response, the wind shifted. The night around them grew still, the forest transforming. Eli's fingers tightened around her wrist, an urgency fueling his grip. The trees were shrouded in darkness, gathering weight behind them, shadows swirling like a storm preparing to unleash its fury again. "What is that?" Evan whispered, eyes wide, pointing toward the thicket that seemed to throb and pulsate in the silence. Lily turned slowly, dread clawing at her insides as she recognized the scents drifting through the air, sharp, bitter like burnt sugar. It was a familiar stench that sent her mind spiraling back to the altar in the ancestral home. "It's the shadows," she said, suddenly aware of how wrong it felt to breathe in the air so close to that malevolence. "They're coming back." Panic surged through them. Eli's heart raced in rhythm with the oppressive aura growing around them. "Mom, we need to hide." In an instant, Lily pushed fear down deep, squaring her shoulders. "No," she growled, clenching her fist around the dagger. "We will not hide again. If they want us, they will have to face us." Her voice rang with the confidence she craved for Evan. Gripping her son's hand, she moved toward the shadows dancing at the edges of the treeline, charging forward with energy that melded fear and fury into a purpose to reclaim what was theirs. As they descended deeper into the forest, the whispers grew louder, filling the air with an unsettling cacophony. "Join us, pay the price," they hissed, weaving through the dense underbrush, grasping at her heart. Each word struck like a hammer, making her feel exposed, vulnerable. But she pressed on. "We won to be claimed," she shouted defiantly, her breath pulled tight against her chest as they delved further into the darkness. The ground trembled beneath her feet, soft and loamy, as they finally broke through into a small clearing illuminated by a full moon, casting everything in stark relief. In the center stood a figure, towering and ominous, shrouded in the same rancid darkness that once consumed her ancestral home. Eyes glinted, a cold gleam that sent shivers spiraling through Lily. It felt like a connect to everything she had fought against: the erasure of cowardice, the embrace of tragedy. "You've returned," the dark figure rasped, voice as smooth as silk yet filled with malice. "Your bloodline has always sought the darkness. Do you wish to embrace it? To become one with our legacy?" Lily stood tall, summoning the courage from deep within. "No, our history does not define us." Eli shook beside her, voice shaking. "We choose our fate, not you." The figure's laughter was like ice, chilling but eerily beautiful. "Ah, but you underestimate the burden of truth. The familial curse cannot be wished away. It demands fulfillment." With that, the shadows behind him surged, a grim wave that twisted and lunged with sickening swiftness. Lily's instincts roared to life as she stepped forward, thrusting the dagger outward. "By blood and bond, I stand against you," she cried as the dagger surged with energy, slicing through the heavy emptiness that danced between them. The shadows splintered in a burst of light, releasing shrieks that echoed through the trees. But the figure wasn't done yet. It swirled, morphing into forms of those lost faces twisted with grief and anger. "Look upon the fallen," it beckoned, gesturing towards the shadows, which began to swirl around them like a vortex. "These are the ones you left behind. Your family. They seek revenge." Memories cascaded into her mind, the faces of those she had never known but had been forever entwined with her existence. The stories had always warned of the weight of lineage, the burden of truth. And right now it felt suffocating. "No more," Lily yelled, pure defiance flowing through her veins. "These are not the ones who define us. We choose love over fear." The shadows recoiled for an instant, a moment of hesitation, and she pressed forward. "We claim our freedom and release the chains of despair. We choose our path." With every word, the dagger brightened, pulsating with the energy of the collective memories she had inherited. with the strength of love and hope intertwining through the darkness. Embrace the light, Evan, she urged, feeling the power wrap around her son. Focus on everything we fought for. Together, they stood united, holding the dagger tightly, their hearts synchronized, beating in defiance of the crushing darkness. The swirling shadows erupted into howls, cracking apart like shattered glass, and the figure screamed in furious protest as the light expanded outward, swallowing its malevolent presence in a blinding wash of white. Then, everything went bright. Vibrations spiraled, echoed, and filled their souls with warmth, a stunning contrast to the shadows that had cocooned them for so long. And as the world began to spin, Lily held her breath, clinging to the moment that would reshape their destinies. What had they just unleashed? Would they finally break the chains of ancestral terror? Or would something even darker be born from their defiance? With their spirits entwined, the truth awaited them at the edge of the horizon. But more importantly, love had created its own legacy, and together they would confront whatever it demanded. Don't wait another second. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this unbelievable ending. And hurry, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel. This is the moment to show your support.